Welcome back everyone. In today's session, I'm going to give you a line-by-line explanation of Strange Meeting written by Wilfred Owen. Do check the pinned comment section for all important video links related to your syllabus. Now take out Rhapsody, page number 20, about the poet. Wilfred Owen was an English poet and soldier, and he is regarded by many as the greatest poet of the First World War, known for his verse about the horrors of trench and gas warfare. So Wilfred Owen is known for his war poetry. The poetry of William Butler Yeats was a significant influence on Owen's early writing and poetry, and he was also influenced by romantic poets like Keats, John Keats and P.B. Shelley. And his great friend, the poet Siegfried Sassoon, also had a profound effect on his poetic voice. Let's come to the last paragraph of page number 20. His war poetry stood in contrast to the public perception of war at the time and to the confidently patriotic verse written by earlier war poets such as Rupert Brooke. Rupert Brooke glorified war. Unlike Rupert Brooke, Wilfred Owen exposed the futility of war and also the hollowness of war. War is meaningless and hollow. Purposelessness of war is also exposed in his poetry. And some of his best known works, most of which were published posthumously, are Dulce et Decorum Est, Insensibility, Anthem for Doomed Youth, Futility, Spring Offensive and Strange Meeting. This section is important, page number 21. Strange Meeting deals with the atrocities of World War I. The poem was written sometime in 1918 and was published in 1919 after Owen's death. The poem is narrated by a soldier. Who is the speaker? The poem is narrated by a soldier who goes to the underworld to escape the hell of the battlefield, and there he meets the enemy soldier he had killed the day before. This is the bitter irony. This poem has been described as one of Owen's most haunting and complex war poems. What is the genre of Strange Meeting? What kind of a poem is Strange Meeting? War poem. And what is the most important question from this poem? Show how Owen expresses anti-war attitude in Strange Meeting. With close reference to the text, bring out Wilfred Owen's attitude to war or Strange Meeting as an anti-war poem. These questions, these long answer questions are very, very important, and you must prepare subjective answers. And in order to write a good subjective answer, you may take down a quotation. Above all, I am not concerned with poetry. My subject is war and the pity of war. The poetry is in the pity. And in his poems, Wilfred Owen exposes war to be the colossal waste of human life and opportunity, number one, and he also exposes the callous indifference with which human lives are thrown away in the front. This is his attitude to war. Strange Meeting is a poem about war, but it does not focus on heroic deeds or grand victories. Instead, the poem treats war as number one, horrifying, number two, wasteful, and number three, dehumanizing. In the words of the enemy soldier, this poem presents the pity of war distilled. And what is more important is the fact that the trauma of war lingers even after the battle is over. This is the impact. These are the consequences of war. And Strange Meeting also presents a pretty bleak view of human society which seems unwilling to stop fighting. This poem presents violence as a choice, something that people decide to engage in. It seemed that out of battle I escaped down some profound dull tunnel, long since scooped through granites which titanic wars had groined. The poem begins with the speaker escaping from battle by heading down into a deep, dark tunnel. What is the setting of this poem? The poem is thus set in a deep, dark tunnel, which the speaker describes in line number 2 as profound and dull. What is the meaning of profound, dull tunnel? Deep, gloomy underground vault. And the expression, it seemed, this indicates that the whole episode came to the speaker in dream of imagination, a kind of nightmare. Long since scooped, dug out. And what is the meaning of granites? Granites means rock. What is happening here? It is clear from the start that this poem is not going to treat war as something glorious or heroic. The soldier is running away from the fighting. He is running away from the battlefield. The reference to titanic wars also suggests that humanity has had a long, devastating history of violence. Titanic. Titanic means great. The Titans were in Greek mythology the deities whom Jove, Apollo, and Neptune overthrew. From their great size, the adjective comes to mean colossal. So such wars were common in the past, and such wars are common in the contemporary world as well. Humanity has had a long, devastating history of violence. The tunnel cuts into the bedrock of the earth, or rather it was cut by titanic wars. The tunnel therefore is not a natural phenomenon. Instead, human beings created it through seemingly useless, endless wars. The hard rocky surface of the earth was full of chasms, holes caused by bombshells. What are the figures of speech in stanza 1? Alliteration. Sin scooped. Sin starts with an S and scooped also starts with an S. Therefore, the figure of speech used here is alliteration. Again, granites, groin. Granite starts with G and groined also starts with G. You must know all the figures of speech. There are two other important figures of speech which are apparently new. What are they? The opening lines, it seemed that out of battle I escaped down some profound dull tunnel long since scooped. These two lines are enjambed. And what is the meaning of enjambment? In verse, the continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the end of a line, couplet or stanza. See, here I escaped down some profound dull tunnel long since scooped. There is no end here. And one line rolls into the other. And this enjambment gives a sense of the speed of the speaker's escape from the battle. Line 3 is then end stopped. And from there onwards, the poem uses a lot of end stops, which tend to cut off one line from another. So there is a sense of separation, of failed reunion in the structure of the lines. Stanza 2. Yet also their encumbered sleepers groaned. Encumbered, huddled together. Sleepers. Who are the sleepers? Dead men. And they groaned in pain. They moaned in pain. In these underground chasms, vaults or chambers, dead men were huddled together and they groaned in pain. They groaned not only because they were huddled together, but also because they were still experiencing the pain and horror to which death has put an end. Although they have died, they still are psychologically traumatized. This is another horror of war. Theme, one of the important themes of this poem is horrors of war and the lingering effect of the trauma of war is to be noted. They are dead, yet they still are groaning in pain. Too fast in thought or death to be bestirred. Bestirred, moved. Either the dead men were held in the grip of the thought of all they had suffered, or they were held in the grip of death. Even in the tunnel, the speaker found soldiers moaning and suffering. They were either too deeply asleep to be stirred, or they were already dead. Then as I probed them, then as he poked and prodded them, one sprang up. One of the sleepers, one of the dead men jumped up. And what did this spirit do? Stared at the speaker. One sprang up and stared with piteous recognition in fixed eyes. He seemed to recognize the speaker, and he pitied the speaker. Lifting distressful hands as if to bless, and by his smile I knew that sullen hall, by his death smile I knew we stood in hell. This spirit lifted his hands sadly as if he was going to bless the speaker, and the speaker could tell from his lifeless smile, death smile, that the dark hall in which they stood was hell itself. This stanza is important. The meaning of probed is examined, and stared. Here we have another alliteration, sprang, stared, alliteration. Stared with piteous eyes in his fixed eyes. The meaning of fixed eyes, the fixed state of his eyes shows that he is dead. The spirit looked fixedly at the speaker with eyes full of pity, as though he had recognized the speaker. And then he raised his hands painfully as if to bless the speaker. Sullen hall, the dark gloomy tunnel. What is the meaning of death smile? Smile devoid of any feeling. The smile of a dead man. And what is the significance of hell? In the Christian tradition, hell is a place that God creates to punish and torment sinners. The punishment is carried out by a crew of fallen angels. However, the hell in Strange Meeting does not have this kind of Christian connotation. Here, hell is a complex and ambiguous symbol. Here the speaker says that the tunnel is not created by God. God did not create the tunnel. Titanic wars cut it through the bedrock. And there are no angels also here. So what are the two meanings of hell as a symbol in Strange Meeting? Number one, it is a symbol for the consequences of human violence. What is the meaning of this? This shows how war damages the landscape and the people who fight it, the lingering trauma and the damage, cutting through the bedrock, causing chasms by bombshells, describes the effect of war on the landscape, damaging effect of war on the landscape, and also the trauma of the people who fight it, cutting them off from the fellow human beings. This is the first meaning. And the second meaning, it is also a place of reconciliation. What is the meaning of this? So, on the surface of the land, these soldiers were fighting with each other. But here, down in the hell, there is a possibility of reconciliation. Here the soldiers have a chance to come face to face with each other. They have a chance to share their frustrations over the war. Here they realize the hollowness of war, and they recognize their shared humanity. What is the meaning of this? In simple words, shared humanity means all soldiers are alike. There are no differences. What is different? They believe in different ideologies. They have different beliefs and ideas. And as a result of that, they are often involved in wars. I hope you have understood the significance of hell. What are the figures of speech here? Sprang, stared, alliteration, and sullen hall. Sullen hall, hell is personified. Hell takes on a human mood. Stanza number 3. With a thousand fears that Vision's face was green, yet no blood reached there from the upper ground, and no guns thumped or down the flues made moan. With a thousand fears that Vision's face was grained. The face of the dead soldier was marked with the lines of 1,000 sorrow, just as a wood is marked with the lines of grain. Blood means bloodshed on the battlefield. And blood is also a symbol. Blood symbolizes the agony and loss of life due to war. Blood as a symbol is significant. No bloodshed reached there from the upper ground and no guns thumped. No sound of guns were heard there. Down the flues made moan. The sound of guns did not penetrate into the underground chamber through any air passage. Yet, 1,000 fears grained the vision's face. What does this show? This shows that there is fear and anxiety forever etched on this soldier's face. The violence of the battle has deprived the enemy soldier of his humanity. Instead of being a full human being, he is just a vision. He has been reduced to being a ghost. The speaker thus portrays war as a force that permanently damages and diminishes both the landscape and the people who fight it. Dead smile in the second stanza, strange friend in the third stanza. Owen uses oxymorons in the dead smile of the strange friend as he brings together those who have been on separate sides of the chasm of war. Strange friend, I said, here is no cause to mourn. You are not able to hear the artillery firing down here, and the guns are also not making the chimneys in the hall groan. So why are you mourning? There is no reason to be sad down here. And what is the reply of the enemy soldier? None, said the other, save the undone years, the hopelessness. Both of them are same. Whatever hope is yours was my life also. Both of them are same. They are alike, but they believed in different ideologies, thoughts and beliefs, and as a result of that, they belong to different factions. You and I had the same hopes. This is the reply of the enemy soldier. The enemy soldier's key hope is that he will be able to tell people about the horrors of war and thus prevent future wars. However, because he has been killed in battle, now he will not be able to convey this message to the world, and as a result of this, the world will continue to go to war without questioning why their governments resort to violence. And this is the hopelessness of the enemy soldier. Whatever hope is yours, shared humanity was my life also. His life was full of hope like the speaker's. I went hunting wild, seeking with joy and rapture. After the wildest beauty in the world, went wild, wildest world. The figure of speech here is alliteration. I went hunting wild after the wildest beauty in the world, which lies not calm in eyes or braided hair, but mocks the steady running of the hour, and if it grieves, grieves richlier than here. The speaker threw himself into seeking the most beautiful thing in the world, and he is not talking about physical beauty. This is wildest beauty in the world, which lies not calm in eyes or braided hair, not physical beauty. This beauty makes fun, despises time, as it steadily passes by. If this beauty is sad, its sadness is so much richer than the sadness they are finding down here in hell. Mocks, makes fun of the steady running of the hourglass. There are figures of speech here. Just note them down. The mocking beauty that mocks the steady running of the hour. The mocking nature of beauty is a personification, and it is closely linked with the metaphor of time running out. This image comes from an hourglass where sand runs through a wasted flask to mark the passage of time. As an image, this is important. For by my glee might many men have laughed. By my glee might many men, again alliteration. And of my weeping something had been left which must die now. The hopelessness, since I have died now, my hopes will remain unfulfilled. What is the meaning of this? As a result of my gladness, many men would have been glad. Something of the sorrows that he suffered in the battlefield yet remains in the world. Now that he is dead, the sorrows would not be made known to the world. The same romantic ways of thought and action which were responsible for the colossal war will remain among men, because he is unable to tell the truth. I mean the truth untold. Here he is sad. He would have left something important behind. If he hadn't died, his happiness might have made a lot of other people happy too. And even in his sadness, he would have left something important behind. Something that can't survive down here. He is talking about truth. The truth that no one talks about. And what is this truth? Truth untold, the horror of war, the futility of war, the brutality of war. People have been glorifying war, but here he is trying to expose the reality of war. War is not a good thing. War only means destruction and bloodshed and also loss of precious lives. I mean the truth untold, the pity of war, the pity war distilled. One of the important themes of this poem. Now men will go content with what we spoiled. Since the speaker did not get to tell people how horrible war is, people will be happy with the destructive things that the enemies have done. They will not learn any lesson from the past. They will not realize that war is not good. Violence here is portrayed as a choice. Either you can stay away from violence, you can shun violence, or you can resort to violence. Or discontent, or they will be unhappy and they will get so angry that they will keep fighting and killing each other. The vicious cycle of violence, bloodshed, loss of lives will continue. And they will be swift with swiftness of the tigress. They will be as fast as tigers. Owen describes people of the future as being swift with the swiftness of the tigress, giving impression of speed and violence more terrible than the contemporary war. None will break ranks. No one will speak out or disagree with their governments, even though the governments are moving society away from progress rather than towards it, though nations trek from progress. As a result of war, as a result of violence, nations will not develop or progress. Courage was mine and I had mystery. Wisdom was mine and I had mastery. The speaker was full of courage and mystery, and he was also full of wisdom and expertise. But unfortunately, he will not be able to share that mystery. What is mystery? Insight into the deeper mysteries of life, and mastery, full command over the needs of the situation. He will not be able to expose the hollowness of war now. He had the wisdom. He could see through the cunningness, the shrewdness of the governments, of the people, with selfish people, with vested interests. To miss the march of this retreating world into vain citadels that are not walled. Miss the march. Example of alliteration. What kind of a world? Retreating world. It's a retreating world. The speaker had courage and wisdom to refuse to join the backward march of the world into the citadel of vain romantic ideals. There is nothing glorious about war. What are citadels? First, the enemy soldier notes that the world is retreating, and then he specifies where they are heading, where civilization is heading, into vain citadels that are not walled. What are citadels? Citadels are fortified towns or large castles. This line contains paradox. the figure of speech used here is paradox. Why? Since a citadel without walls isn't much of a citadel, it will offer you no protection, no defense. The enemy soldier admits, calling the citadels vain, that it is useless. War is pushing the world backwards into these useless citadels. People are fighting for nothing. This is the paradox. Then, when much blood had clogged their chariot wheels, again, example of alliteration, clogged chariot wheels. Then will come a time when the wheels of the chariot of what the reactionaries call progress will be clogged and obstructed by the blood of the men they have killed. This shows the destruction and bloodshed of war. War only means bloodshed, and so much blood will be spilled that the blood will clog. The chariot wheels will stop the chariot wheels of progress. So war is not good. War is indeed very bad. I would go up, and when this happens, when such a time comes, if the wheels of the chariot wheels get clogged with blood, the speaker would go wash them with water from pure wells. He would wash them with truths too profoundly true to be corrupted. He would do everything he possibly could do to help, except for fighting, except for taking part in more horrible war. In war, even those who are not physically hurt suffer from mental trauma. I would go up and wash them from sweet wells, even with truths that lie too deep for taint, too deep to be corrupted. I would have poured my spirit without stint. Spirit without stint again. What is the meaning? What is the figure of speech? The figure of speech is alliteration. The speaker would have poured upon the truths, his spirit, his pity, sympathy, love without limit, without stint, without limit. But not through wounds. He would not participate in battle, not on the cess of war. Now, foreheads of men have bled where no wounds were. Cess of war. What is the meaning? Cess of war. The strange friend is not, however, prepared to pour out his spirit on the cess of war. A cesspit was a primitive method of collecting sewage. So this is a strong and crude image, and this image reflects the depth of feeling Owen and the soldier have about war. They just hate war. Now let's come to the chariot wheels once again. The chariot wheels suggest an ancient war, but also represent the machinery which drives forward any war. The desire to wash them from sweet wells is a picture of how the soldier longs to cleanse and purify the bloodshed in so many battles. The image of living, healing water comes from the Bible, where it is an image of healing, cleansing, and the eternal life offered by Jesus. I would have poured out my spirit without stint. What is the significance? This shows the willingness of the soldier to make sacrifices for truth. The idea is that the soldier would sacrifice his spirit in the cause of freedom rather than blood. This echoes Owen's personification of war, which results in the distilling of pity. So the man wants to pour out this pity without holding anything back. Foreheads of men have bled where no wounds were. Men have suffered agonies without receiving any physical wound. In other words, men suffer in other ways than on the battlefield. Mental wound is more painful than the physical. This is a metaphor for psychological suffering. Keep this in mind. Psychological suffering. I am the enemy you killed, my friend. I knew you in this dark, in the darkness of hell. For so you frowned yesterday through me as you jabbed and killed. Your eyes had angry look when you killed me yesterday. I tried to parry you. I tried to ward you off, to avert the weapon, the blow. But my hands were loath and cold. My hands were slow and clumsy. Let us sleep now. What is the meaning of this? Here, the ending is significant because I am the enemy you killed, my friend. This line is paradoxical. You might wonder how the soldiers can be both enemies and friends. But here the implication is clear. They are only enemies because their countries have decided to fight each other. Once all that is stripped away, once all that is removed, they are friends again, as they were at first before the war. Friendship, not violence, and enmity is the natural relationship between human beings. And this is a bitter irony. All the devastation, horror, dehumanization that the poem describes is unnecessary. In fantasizing about a better world, a world in which two soldiers are friends instead of enemies, the soldier demonstrates just how unnecessarily brutal and horrifying this world actually is. War is hollow. There is no purpose, there is no advantage in fighting a battle, in fighting a war. But there are people who misguide, who brainwash young people to believe that war is something glorious. Nothing exposes the inhuman brutality and horror of war as this speech of the dead soldier. The killer and the killed are completely unknown to each other. They do not bear each other any enmity, yet they jab and kill each other under the influence of a blind, beastly impulse that war brings into play. The enemy soldier is a German soldier whom the speaker killed the previous night. Even in the darkness of the underground vault, he could recognize him as his killer. But both of them will sleep now. Both of them will rest now. Dear students, in this poem, there is another important theme. Just go through that theme as well. The theme of reconciliation. Owen uses his poetry as a way of expressing his philosophy about the pity of war and the truth untold. Produces the idea of greater love, essential to wash the world clean with truth. But despite this hopeful, even beautiful vision, the enemy soldier does not show a lot of optimism. People, unfortunately, are not learning any lesson from their past mistakes. People take violence as a cause for further violence, a cycle with no obvious exit. He presents this as a betrayal of the underlying possibility for reconciliation between the people who fight each other. This is the end of today's session. And dear students, MCQs, give reasons, questions and answers will be discussed with the passage of time gradually. Till then, take care and subscribe.